shade of his father's house, in a village of ancient India, there was a young man who had everything. He was brilliant. He was beautiful. The Brahman elders smiled when he walked past. His friend Govinda followed him like a shadow, full of love and loyalty. Every morning, Siddhartha bathed in the river and made offerings to the gods and recited the verses. The same verses his father had recited, and his father's father before that. And none of it was enough. This is a read-aloud summary of Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. Written in 1922, it is a short book, but people return to it across decades because it asks the one question that does not get easier with age. What does it actually mean to find yourself? The ache at the center of this book is not dramatic. There is no villain. There is no collapse. There is just this: a young man surrounded by people who love him, trained in the highest wisdom his culture offers, and quietly, persistently, unfulfilled. He knows what he is supposed to become. He does not know who he is, and somewhere inside him is the understanding that no teacher, no text, no ritual is going to close that gap for him. Siddhartha's life unfolds in 4 broad movements, leaving what he was given, searching in the most extreme ways he can find, losing himself in the ordinary world, and finally, slowly, coming to rest. We will follow each one. The first movement, the leaving. Siddhartha is the son of a Brahman, which means he was born into the highest caste in ancient India. He knew the prayers. He mastered the meditations. His father was devout and wise, and Siddhartha loved him. But Siddhartha noticed something his father could not see about himself. His father was still thirsty. The man woke up every morning and performed his ablutions to wash away sin. And every evening he returned to the river again. The washing never ended. The thirst was never quenched. Siddhartha thought, if a life of total devotion to the teachings does not satisfy the wisest man I know, what exactly are the teachings giving us? One night, without drama, without an argument, Siddhartha stood behind his father and waited. All night. His father kept coming back to the room, seeing his son standing motionless, arms folded, moonlight on his shins. Finally, before dawn, his father said the words Siddhartha was waiting for. Go. Go to the forest. If you find blissfulness, come back and teach me. If you find disappointment, come back and we will make offerings together. That moment, a father giving his son permission to leave everything the father built, is the most painful sentence in the first half of the book. And it is the only honest thing either of them could have done. Govinda left with him. They joined a band of wandering ascetics called the Samanas, men who starved themselves, burned under the sun, sat motionless in thorn bushes. The idea was to kill the ego by destroying the body's comfort until only the pure self remained. Siddhartha was very good at it. He fasted for weeks. He held his breath until pain dissolved into nothing. He learned to project his consciousness into other forms. He became a heron in his mind, a dying jackal, a piece of drifting wood. He escaped the self again and again. And then one morning, he said something that stopped Govinda cold. What I do here in the forest is no different from what the ox cart driver does at the tavern with a bowl of rice wine. We both go numb. We both escape ourselves for a while. Then we come back, and everything is exactly as it was. 3 years with the Samanas. He left knowing what he had learned, that the self cannot be escaped by punishing the body. Every path that leads away from the self leads right back to it. The second movement, the teacher he refused. Rumors had been spreading across India about a man called Gotama the Buddha. He had sat under a tree and reached enlightenment. He was teaching now, and people were becoming his students in thousands. Govinda burned with hope. Siddhartha was curious, but calmer about it. They found Gotama walking through a city, collecting alms. Siddhartha recognized him the moment he saw him, not from any mystical sign, but from the quality of the man's presence. He walked like someone who had stopped searching. No grasping in the hands, no hunger in the eyes, a quietness so complete it was visible. That evening, Gotama taught. He described suffering, the origin of suffering, the path to its end. Govinda listened and wept and stepped forward to become a disciple. Siddhartha listened and felt something else, admiration, and a clean, specific disagreement. The next morning, Siddhartha asked to speak with Gotama privately. He told the Buddha, "Your teachings are perfect, your logic is complete. I honor everything in them. But there is one gap. You reached enlightenment through your own direct experience in a moment that no teaching can fully convey, and you know this. So when you teach, you are giving us the map, but the map is not the same as walking the territory. What you found cannot be handed to another person. It can only be lived." Gotama smiled and said, "You are wise. Be careful of too much wisdom." Govinda stayed with the Buddha. Siddhartha walked away alone, and the loneliness of that moment, watching his closest friend disappear into a community while he turned back toward an unknown road, is the first time in the book that Siddhartha truly has no one. He walked out of the grove a different person. For the first time in his life, he was not a student. He was not following a path that someone else had drawn. He was, for the first time, simply and terrifyingly himself. The third movement, the world he almost drowned in. Siddhartha arrived in a city. He met Kamala, a famous courtesan, a woman of beauty, intelligence, and complete self-possession. He told her honestly, "I want to learn the art of love." She told him, just as honestly, "To learn from me, you need fine clothes, sandals, money, and something more. You need to be someone in the world." So Siddhartha went to work for a merchant named Kamaswami. He was a natural. He could stay calm in negotiations because he had no fear of losing. He did not need the money. He treated failure like someone watching a game. And because of this, he succeeded, which was when the real danger started. For years, he lived this life. He learned love from Kamala. He learned commerce from Kamaswami. He ate well and slept in soft beds and played dice and drank wine. He told himself he was playing, that none of it touched the real Siddhartha, that he was a traveler camping in this life, not actually living it. But slowly, without noticing, he became it. He started to worry about money. He started to gamble compulsively, not for pleasure, but to feel something, because the numbness of comfortable living had reached inside him and replaced whatever used to be there. He woke up one night from a dream and looked at Kamala sleeping beside him and felt a cold horror. This was his life, and it was hollow. He left before dawn. He walked to the river and sat down and looked at the water and had one thought. He could die. The thought was so simple and so clear that it almost felt like relief. And then, from somewhere deep and wordless, he heard a single sound. The sacred syllable he had learned as a boy. He had not thought it. It had risen from inside him unbidden. He slept. When he woke up, a monk was sitting across from him, Govinda, traveling through. Govinda did not recognize him. Siddhartha looked like a broken man. Govinda offered to stay with him for the night. Siddhartha said thank you and did not tell Govinda who he was. The fourth movement. The river teaches what no teacher could. Siddhartha came back to the river, the same river he had crossed years before on his way into the world. The ferryman who had taken him across was still there. His name was Vasudeva. He was a simple man who had spent his entire life transporting people back and forth across the same stretch of water. Siddhartha asked to stay and help him. Vasudeva said yes, and for years, Siddhartha listened to the river. Here is what the river said, not in words, but in a way that Siddhartha eventually understood. All things are happening at once. The river is a child and an old man and a current and a stone all at the same moment. When you look at it from one point on the bank, it looks like it is going somewhere. But the river is not going anywhere. It is everywhere already. Past and future and present are one thing, if you can stop standing in only one place and forcing the water to have a direction. Time is the thing people suffer from most without knowing it. We suffer because we think we are standing at a point on a line, and the good things are behind us or ahead of us, and right now is always a little disappointing. The river does not know this problem. The river simply is. Kamala died on the riverbank, bitten by a snake, on her way to see the Buddha before he too died. She had been carrying a son, Siddhartha's son, a boy named young Siddhartha, who had grown up in the city, spoiled and sharp-tongued and full of contempt for his strange, quiet father. Siddhartha tried to hold on to the boy. The boy ran away, back to the city, and Siddhartha had to do the hardest thing he had ever done, harder than leaving his father's house, harder than leaving the Buddha, harder than walking away from Kamala. He had to let his son choose a path that he, Siddhartha, could see was full of suffering and not prevent it, because his father had let him go, and his father's love had been in that release. Vasudeva sat with him until the grief passed. Then Vasudeva walked into the forest and disappeared, not dramatically, just quietly gone, the way a teacher leaves when the student no longer needs them. At the end of the book, Govinda returns. He has heard that a ferryman on the river has become something like a holy man. He does not recognize Siddhartha again at first. They sit together. Govinda asks, "What have you found? What do you believe?" Siddhartha says, "I believe that love is the most important thing. Not the love that a teacher has for his teaching, or a believer has for a doctrine, but the love that looks at a stone or a river or a person and does not try to make it something else. When I look at this river, I do not see something I need to cross. I see the river. That is all. That is everything." Govinda leans forward and touches Siddhartha's face, and in that touch, Govinda sees everything, every form, every face, every creature, all at once, without beginning or end. He weeps, though he does not know why. Siddhartha, the boy who left everything to find himself, and the river, the stone, the face of a man you have known your entire life and are meeting for the first time. What is the thing in your life that you have always been crossing toward? And what if you stopped looking at the other side?
Thank you for watching. If this content resonated with you, I would appreciate your likes and comments, which help this reach more people who might find it useful.